just heading out of the town of Grand Lake. I took a 0 yesterday. Incredibly great trail community. The trail is going straight through town, which is extremely rare, and it's a very tourism intensive area, so definitely a summer destination. But it's a neat little town. They have everything that you need. A bunch of restaurants, outfitters that know what thru hikers need, and stayed at the Shadow Cliff mountain retreat. An incredible place, incredibly hiker friendly as well. It was overall an extremely relaxing 0, and I used the time not only to catch up with a lot of hikers that came through town. This is kind of like a melting pot where everybody comes together and everybody stops by because they all have to resupply and figure out what to do on the way to Steamboat Springs. And also use the time to just do a whole bunch of organizational stuff that you can't do out of the train because there's just no cell phone reception most of the time. I got about 3 days of hiking left. I start off on the red line towards Steamboat Springs to Boa Pass, and I'm gonna just kind of freestyle my way back down towards Granby, and then take a bus up to Grand Lake again, where I'll meet my girlfriend in about 4 days, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, with the hikers that I spoke, and there were quite a few of them, I'd say it was about a 50-50% toss-up of people who were doing the CDT through Rocky Mountain National Park and those who take the shortcut. So there is just so you're aware, the red line actually does about a 28-mile loop through Rocky Mountain National Park until you leave the national park boundaries. Now there's also a shortcut that's only about 5 miles, which kind of circumvents that section through the national park. And there's a few different reasons why people are skipping this section or are taking the shortcut. If you want to camp in the national park, you actually need to get an entrance fee, and you need to get a backcountry permit for a specific campsite that needs to be on this loop. And these permits are really hard to get. They're given out by a lottery system, and it's also the 4th of July coming up, so it's essentially impossible for CDT hikers to get an overnight permit on that loop. So that means either you do the 28 miles in a day and hike in and out of the park, which then doesn't require a permit, and also on top of that permit, you also need a bear canister, a hard-sided bear canister, which almost nobody's carrying. And so a lot of people, if they want to do it, they decide to do it in a day, hike in and out of the park in one day. So you don't need the backcountry permit, you don't need the bear canister, and you're out before you camp. Now some people slack pack it, meaning they just leave all their stuff in town, do the whole loop with as little gear as possible, hitch back into town, get their gear, and then go out again. And then, yeah, like I said, half of the people said, I don't really mind too much. I've been in the park before. That loop that the CDT is doing in the park, some people claim isn't the most attractive one, as you can see behind me, because the southwestern corner of the park is kind of in a burn area, or parts of it are in a bit of burn area. Some say, the likelihood of the wildlife encounters in the park. I already had that, like outside of the vicinity of the park. I'm taking the shortcut out of the park now because I'm going to be doing the CDT loop, or part of that CDT loop, with my girlfriend when she comes in. We do have backcountry permits, so for me it's the first time visiting a national park, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I did hear some complaints from thru hikers. I mean, I understand where those complaints are coming from. In a way, especially on the CDT, I don't know about the other trails. Thru hikers are very privileged in a lot of ways. And I guess one of the biggest ones is that almost the entirety of the CDT is on public land, usually BLM land or Forest Service land. And so, I mean, there's the wilderness areas and there's the wilderness areas regulations, which you of course have to adhere to. But aside from that, there's really no restrictions in like what you can and can't do. If you're following basic backcountry etiquette, you essentially you have the freedom to just walk, and then whenever you see a nice spot, pitch your tent, sleep there, continue, move through that region freely. The big difference in the national park, though, is that it's the intensity of usage. Because for the entirety of the rest of the CDT, there is essentially nobody, with the exception of a few through hikers. So there's a super tiny fraction of human use, hiking human use in those regions. That means very little chance of human and wildlife encounters, very little resource usage of visitors in those natural resources. And the national parks kind of work as a huge lens as it concentrates this use massively. I mean, just as a point of reference, there's about 500 through hikers that are moving like up and down the CDT per year, roughly. Let it be 600, I don't know. Just Rocky Mountains National Park alone has, if I'm not mistaken, 4.5 million visitors a year on a much smaller area. So you also have to understand the National Park Service, because they of course have to find a regulatory framework that kind of works for 4.5 or 4.5 million visits per year versus 500 semi-entitled through hikers. And so it doesn't mean that there's not better ways to handle the combination of through hiking and national parks. There's definitely parks that handle this in a more convenient way for through hikers than others. So a good example is Glacier National Park, which is extremely complicated because the trail goes through a fair chunk of the park, and there's not one permit that you can get for a through hiker to just move through the park. So what it kind of requires is you have to go into the backcountry office, sit down with a ranger, try to figure out an itinerary for you to move through that park. It's quite a complicated process because you don't really have the flexibility. Once you got the permits for each single campsite, and you're locked into those campsites, you have to go to those campsites. So you can't say, oh, today I'm doing 20 miles and tomorrow 30. You're bound to that campsite and you're bound to that campsite. And if whatever things change, you just don't have the flexibility to adapt that. And on the contrary, Yellowstone is a complete breeze. You just call them and tell them, look, I'm a CDT through hiker. They like put a small share of relevant campsites along the CDT aside every year, because at any given day there might be a maximum of 5 through hikers or something like that. They all have one-person tents. None of them have vehicles. There's very small resource use of this group, and they just say, all right, fine, we're going to send you the permit per email. It's a 5-minute process, no problem at all, super easy. And then Rocky Mountains National Park, again, a lot more complicated. And because it's so complicated, because it's so inconvenient, it's also one of the reasons why the trail just kind of touches the park rather than actually make use of it, which is, to me, completely mind-boggling. If I'm conceptualizing a long-distance trail, hiking trail, and it passes by
and I guess if you look around here,
and these national parks are usually there for a reason, because
there's a lot of trees coming down.
Pristine wilderness, beauty,
it's just a matter of time.
magnificent landscape. So there's a reason why millions of people visit these places. So if I have a trail that goes right by that, was to try to put that trail through the national park. Because I mean, it's an absolute highlight along the way. And so both in Rocky Mountains National Park as well as in Yellowstone, the CDT really just touches the park and then heads out right away. So it doesn't really make use of that incredible highlight along the way, which I personally find a bit sad. Then other trails, for example, on the PCT, haven't done it, but that's what I heard, have solved it differently. They got the system, you actually apply for a permit that is relevant for the entire PCT. And then this permit is also respected by all the national parks that you go through. So you don't need like an individual regulatory system for this target group in every single park. So like I said, there is better and worse ways to handle it, for sure. But yeah, it's also very much understandable that national parks, which are already resource drained to an extent that is almost unbelievable, can't really or don't really want to have like separate regulatory approaches to through hikers if there's such a small group. It's 200 versus 4.5 million. So keep that in mind, my dear through hikers, and enjoy the parks while you can. Some people find burn zones really dull or unappealing. I actually think they're pretty cool. Not only do you have the cycle of rejuvenation going on, but also all of the dead trees, they kind of look like charred statues. And another neat thing is, because it's all fairly low grow, you actually have very good view through the area. So if there's animals around, you can actually see them from quite a distance. Whoa! So this little beauty right here, it just crashed down about, what, 3 yards in front of my face. And yeah, whew, sorry, heart's pounding. I guess that's the reason why you should be really paying attention where you put your tent. Jeez. Yeah, I guess that just shows you the hazards out here. They're not all mountain lions and grizzlies and stuff. It might also just be a fallen tree. And this was the second time I saw a tree coming down. The first one was about 50 yards away in the forest a couple of weeks ago near Mount Albert. But this one was literally right in my face. I mean, I heard it coming down and I made a huge jump backwards and wham! It was just coming down right in front of me. Well, close one, huh? My almost deadly little trip to the Rocky Mountains National Park is already coming to an end. I'm just at the end of that 5-mile loop that takes you into the park and just out of the park on the west side again. The red line continues on the other side up into the mountains towards Bowen Pass, and that's kind of my goal for today. Make it to the foot of that pass and then do the climb in the morning. And I'll be honest, with that strong wind, I'm quite happy to get out of this burn zone. Just crossed Highway 34, which is the main road that leads through the national park. Well, goodbye Rocky Mountain National Park. Thanks for not killing me. Welcome, Never Summer Wilderness in the Arapaho National Forest. I kid you not, but there was literally just another tree that came down in the forest next to me. And we're not even in a burn zone anymore. You can see just a normal pine forest. It's not even particularly stormy here. It just, I don't know, crashed down. The second one today. So we're up 200% overall on the trail. Maybe the universe is trying to tell me something? I don't know. Trail registers are fun. So trail registers are little books that are sometimes along the trail where you just put your name and when you came through and it'll help land management organizations just kind of to determine how trails are used. But it has this funny effect. It's kind of like the race standing at the Tour de France, and like the whole peloton is drawn out and the riders can't see each other, and then there's like these standings coming in, so you can kind of see who's where and who's leading and who's behind, etc. So you do see who came through and in which order and on what day. Unfortunately, people never ever put the time of day, so you only ever know on which day they came through. So there was a trail race just as it down about a mile ago, and I saw, for example, the last person who signed it was Box Troll. And Box Troll is a very kind trail runner from Colorado who I met on day 18 or something down in New Mexico, and she was doing big mile days right from the get-go. She was blazing through the trail, and if I remember correctly, she told me that she was getting off trail for a while for, I don't know, like something, and it seems like she just got back on trail and it's like right in front of me, but I have no idea if she came through this morning at 7 or 30 minutes ago. So given that she's probably a lot faster than I am, I'm probably not going to catch up to her and see her, but yeah, it's fun regardless. Trail registers are always a trove of information. The treasure hunt continues. I just met a section hiker who gave me more intel. He said he saw Box Troll about an hour ago because he was coming the other way. So I know she's close. It was about 6 o'clock when I was at the bottom of the climb, and that would have been 1400 feet. So by the time I would have been at the pass would have been 7, which would have been fine in daylight if I would have camped right there or shortly after the pass. But while filtering water, I looked at the map and I realized there's not really any good camping either on or behind the pass. So it would have been like another, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour until I had found a good camp spot. And then it would have been 8 or something, which would still have worked, but it wouldn't have been fun because then I had to make dinner and pitch tent and all of that. It would have been really late, and since I don't really have anywhere to be, I just put my tent right here because there's a very nice camp spot, and I'm gonna have dinner and I'm gonna enjoy sunset, and then I'll just climb the pass tomorrow. For dinner we're having rice with broccoli in a cheesy cheddar sauce, and I'm really glad that my next resupply boxes up north will not include north sides anymore because I can't stand them anymore.